Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting. Alrighty, so just coming at you today, I was having a chat with a mate, and he was just mentioning around his, having to go out there and try and find clients on LinkedIn today. So I proposed a strategy of, building out personal brands under the business brand on LinkedIn, all right, through groups. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, let's say you've got a business and you've got 10 employees. All righty. Figure out what your brand values are, figure out your target promotion, so the action you want to have happen. So more than likely, if you're looking for business, you need brand awareness. You need to build your brand. You know what I mean? You want to have business coming into you so that you can use that money to go out there and get more business. You know what I mean? So you have that stable flow. Now, how do we do that? Well, the easiest way I've discovered to do it is just by building personal brands through your staff and have them post to your business page. Now, most people would say, but my staff, then their Facebook isn't curated, this, that, the other. Your staff are people. Okay. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a connection. Now, you don't want your staff out there saying neo-Nazi stuff. By all means, if they're saying stuff like that or they're acting in those ways in their personal life that don't align with your business values, maybe they shouldn't be staff. That's one thing. When you're doing hiring, when you're promoting, when you're, getting new staff, what are your business values? They've got to align with it so that they can best promote it. All right, but off that topic. So what we want to do, okay, is we want to build personal brands that promote brand values, that promote our target promotions, all right? That basically we want to individualize your staff, all right, so that we're able to create these not personas, but we're able to create a bit of a voice, a bit of a style, a bit of a way of communicating, because that's the goal of this strategy. Is we want to amplify our communication to our target audience in a way to where we can do it for free and we don't piss people off, and basically we build high value or high amounts of rapport with our desired target audience, because the way we communicate to them and where we communicate is where they get in information and is how they want to get information. Now, getting down to that, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of data to get that right. So what we want to do is we want to start off at 10%. So let's aim to get 10% when we post into a group. So if we post into a group, let's aim to get, if we get 50 views, maybe we get like 1 follower, maybe 5 followers. You know what I mean? So we use the metrics and the content to try and bring in people to our page, because what we want to do is we want to get them to our page, and then in that, having them in our page, we can put offers in between the content. And what that allows us to do is when people are scrolling or when we release offers, now we've got people who follow us that see it, that it's organically promoted. So this is a strategy for us to build our follower base. Okay, for us to build our brand reputation, for us to build our, our explanation of our services, in terms of we're indirectly demonstrating what we do, how we do it. What's unique about us? What is different about us? Okay, who are we? And what happens is, in the process of us doing that and promoting that, if we're authentic and genuine, we build massive rapport with people who think and value the same things as us. that believe what we believe, and that value our input. All right. Now, the ones that don't are going to get pissy, but that's okay because that's life. People are pissy. So don't stress about that. Use negative responses as a measure and a gauge to understand, am I posting content that is in alignment with this group, or am I posting, content that is in conflict with it? Because we want to understand, is it that there's, people in that group that are just there, trying to piss people off and get attention? Or is it that we're clashing with the values and beliefs of that group to where our content, even if it's authentic from us, is not authentic for them? So it's very important to understand the groups in the context of, we want to be posting authentically from ourselves, but in a way that they reciprocate because it respects them at a high level. All right, so this is what we'll talk about, and I'll explain to you how to do this process. It's very basic, very simple. But basically, think about it like this. You take a girl out on a date before you take her to the bed. This is building a relationship with people by taking them on a date and letting them get to know you without you directly forcing them to know you, without you directly telling them why you're good. You're demonstrating through your actions, through your speech, and through your thought. So understand that's how we communicate our values, what we believe, who we are, why we're doing this. Okay. Like, this is how we build massive trust on a subconscious level with our target market. Okay. So our target market is a reflection of the way we communicate. So if our target market is a specific persona and our communication's off and we're getting different results, that means we're targeting through our communication the wrong people. So we've got to change our style of communication. So that's another thing we'll look at. The language we use to the results we get. So the way we talk and the focus we give to specific languages and specific trends and specific dialect, what have you, whatever that is, they're the metrics that we have to identify as our influencing factors to getting the results. So when we're creating this persona of who do we want to, target, how do we communicate to them? How do they like to be communicated? So we want to figure out this persona and then go and find them on social media and try and work out, watch them for a bit. Maybe get 4 or 5, of your ideal clients or your current clients, and just check out their social media, check out the groups that they're a part of, check out the pages, check out the content they do, check out how their friends interact with them, how their friends talk to them. This gives you all ways to personalize, your communication to your target market. And that's very important, because what it does is it breaks down subconscious barriers. And what is the subconscious? That's your trust. That's your gut feeling. So if you're able to communicate at a high level, authentically, in a way that breaks past or lowers their subconscious barriers, their gut barriers, and the way you do that is through authenticity, through using authentic language for the goal that you're trying to achieve or the action that you're trying to achieve. So if you're trying to get people to follow you, maybe screaming and shouting and jumping around isn't the way to go. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Okay. But the thing is if you're inauthentic, jumping around, screaming and all of that, and it's putting on a show, who are you bringing in? Because it ain't your target audience, unless your target audience is inauthentic to you in terms of you're outside of where you authentically should be. All right. So just understanding that if you find yourself that you're outside where you're authentically meant to be, all you have to do is just shape your cultural identity of who you identify as and implant your ideal client or your target audience's beliefs. So you do a bit of research and you find out what they like, and then you start to do it. You start to, play around with it, and maybe they're into archery and maybe your product is around archery and you don't really care much about archery. Go out and do it and become proficient at it, and do it just for the sake to be proficient at it and to understand what your target audience goes through. What are their trials, tribulations? Okay, because when you understand that, marketing to them and communicating it with them respectfully and effectively is quite easy. So we'll keep going through. So what we want to do is we want to build out a process. All right. We then want to build out our personal brands. All right. So how do we build out a personal brand and then align it to the business? All right. Then we want to find the target groups. Like I mentioned, who's the target audience? Who does your target audience culturally identify as? Now, when I talk about cultural, okay, I don't just mean your religious, your heritage, where you come from. Sorry. Your culture is more than that. Your culture is who you identify as. So your nationality, where you live, the cultural identity of the nationality, your personal societal identities, where you sit in society, how you view yourself, how society views you. So there are many layers to this, all right? So understanding, you got to break down each of those layers to really understand your audience's cultural identity. But you can do it quite simply as well, because we're not looking, if we're looking to do a highly targeted message, that we want to break it down and we want to get a message, okay, to a specific 5% of our target audience that need to take action now and that want to take action now and that just need a push. Okay, then we want to do highly specified, where we break down multiple levels and multiple layers and different variations, okay, or different influencing variables that are factoring into the decision making of our target audience. All right. So very complex side of it. And then we've got the broad side, which is the simple side. All right. So let's say we're targeting people and we sell copywriting services. Okay. So who needs that? More than likely, business owners with websites. All right, sweet. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to then break it down maybe a little bit more in depth. So let's say e-commerce businesses, they probably need that services. All righty. So now we've got it easy. Now let's have a look. Is there groups? Where do e-commerce people operate? So let's find 5 e-commerce people. What are the groups? Are any of them in aligning groups? Okay. So is the target market, in terms of, if we do, a sample, data selection, right, of our, let's say we're selling copywriting services and we're targeting e-commerce businesses. Okay. And we target e-commerce businesses USA. And we grab 5 random e-commerce businesses, okay, across LinkedIn. or e-commerce entrepreneurs would probably be more accurate, because more than likely they're going to be more active on LinkedIn because, trying to get things up and running and all of that. So if we target them and we see that 3 of them are in one group, 2 of them are in 3 groups, we know what? There's a high likelihood that people who are in e-commerce, okay, like that there's going to be a fair few of them in these groups. So it's quite easy. So we can quite easily break it down to where we can get general results. Now, what happens with general results? The percentage is lower of actions taken and results. So it just means when we're finding these target groups, we need to understand a couple of core things. The most important is we need to have a large enough target audience, because our goal with this process is to siphon off followers, because every time we post, we only get a snapshot of that group's potential for maybe a minute, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, depending on how competitive they are. So that's the second factor. We want to understand what are the high volume groups in terms of high volume of posts. So we're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of traffic, all right, and that are the high competitive ones. So where we've actually got, not just, not links, but we don't just have, spam, because we don't just want to be on a high volume spam one where every post is just spam. You know what I mean? We want to see one where we've got, people promoting, people engaging, people putting up, random pieces of content that they're creating, people putting up thoughts. Like, we want to have this ecosystem that we can work within, because stage 2 of this process, okay, so once we've promoted our content and we're promoting our content, the next stage through is when people like and follow us, or when they like us in the groups, right? When we see them post in the groups, we like their content. When someone follows us, we follow them back, and we set someone up to have identified people. And what we want to do is we want to also, share that bit of, we want our people going through these groups that we're posting their content into, liking, authentic content, random content, because what that does is that builds up that trust of community. But what we want to do is we want to get this stage set up first, because we can't do the other stage before this stage, because it's all sort of backwards. Because this stage allows us to promote out and then see who are 10% of early adopters, and then we focus on giving them attention. And then as we give them attention, we're sort of engaging, building relationships, and then it sort of flows out from that. Okay? Because we're giving them attention, so we're creating activity, and we're getting activity on the posts that we are doing. So what happens as a natural effect is other people come, and then more come. So the goal with this is stage 1 is to promote, stage 2 is to connect. Okay. Alrighty. So it's a highly effective campaign, and all it costs is a bit of time, and with effort, it's endless, it's boundless. You can go anywhere, you can do anything. With enough effort and enough focused attention, you will be able to take this, and if you had, say, 30 friends, and maybe you had a business and you sold a product or a service, and you had 30 people creating unique individual content and, posting daily once or twice a day, within a month, you would have close to 1,000 pieces of content, probably more. Do you understand? So then you can effortlessly take those 20 people, instead of them sending, they post once or twice a day to 20 groups or 10 groups. So then you go from being one poster with an aligned message to 21, or no, to like 10 or whatever have you, however many people you are. Do you understand? So then it's like, well, hey, maybe they post 3 times an hour to our highest competitive groups. What would happen if you had a list of, say, 20 groups that you could freely post into, that your target market was into, and you just gave people lists of, say, 3 groups to post in every day? What do they do there? They build up your brand recognition. They build up your authority. You've now got someone in there that posts, and maybe in those 3 groups, they just run through an hour a day, and they just like, say 5, 10 pieces of content of people that they either know, or people that they see there regularly, or authentic content, or people, celebrate people, trying. Because if you do that, they're going to be so appreciated of you celebrating them trying. And then the results are more than likely they're going to succeed at what they're trying at. You know what I mean? And what's going to happen to that? Well, 1, they're going to feel recognized. 2, they're going to feel highly connected to you for appreciating them. They'll probably feel appreciated as well. So maybe they'll like every piece of content that you put out there. Maybe they'll want to share your content in the future over a long enough time period. Do you understand? Like that's the strategy. It's not about trying to spam people or promote to them or manipulate them. But what it is you're trying to use your uniqueness to find those people that relate and align to you, and then promote them and celebrate them. And what happens is they then promote and celebrate you, and you start to build this organic network. Okay. And on LinkedIn, what happens if your posts are getting a high amount of engagement? Okay. The groups will promote them. The admins will promote them. LinkedIn will promote them. So that's the goal of this strategy. This is a strategy on how do you get there? Because that's the end goal. If we can get that, then you no longer have to do work. And with a large enough, content bank of around, even just 100 pieces of content, for 6 to 12 months, you can rotate that content and just hire someone, to post content for you across the page. And then you can, maybe do a little promotional thing with your staff, where if they post to these 3 groups once a day and they like 5 or 10 things, they get $150 extra a day, as a promotion, or as compensation, as a thank you. And what do you get in terms of that? Probably anywhere close to 2 to 10,000 free views of your brand and people associated with your brand. So then you go through and you with their LinkedIn profiles, is what do? Well, you get in there and you promote that they work for you. So maybe they do, like, you do work appreciation posts from them that are highly from you that are highly branded, or from the brand that's highly branded, into their feed. Do you get it? So we're always using positive messaging, so that when someone sees this person's content for the 26th time and they go, oh, I'm going to click on their name, and they go back to their LinkedIn profile, and there's some posts and posts and posts, and maybe there's a post from the brand thanking them so much for whatever they've done. And they go, oh, that's pretty cool. And maybe it's a regular thing that every week or two, the brand promotes out a personalized thank you post to that employee. And then what happens? On the first time, maybe they're like, oh, that's a cool idea. On the second time, they're probably like, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder what this brand is. By the third or the fourth time that they see it, do you understand? Like what happens is as we curate the pages, so the profiles, okay, to be the branding, so that the personal brand on the page is highly linked to the overall brand. And the content from the personal can be promoted into the groups and then also promoted by the brand into the groups, so that we're getting that brand name out there with a nice, positive, fun message. Okay. So that's one of the key things. And we can even do strategic, where maybe we want to offer a specific new service. So we promote how good we're at their service and what we're looking to do, or whatever have you. Do you understand? Like we have content of individual employees experiencing whatever this new thing is. And we're promoting how good we are at it, how competent, how capable. We're promoting how effective we are, because we're able to structure it that way. You know what I mean? Like we're not going to go there and, act like donkeys and think this is great content. Like that's not a good idea. We definitely want to be perceived as effective and be effective. Do you understand? Like we want to promote, like, hey, this is Janine. She's learned something that takes most people 2 weeks and she's mastered it in a week. How good is she? Can't wait until she's out in the field again. Do you understand? And we're promoting, like, and celebrating her, and everyone else sees a brand celebrating their employees. Do you understand? But what do they see? They see a brand. Do you get it? Brand awareness, free brand promotion. Okay. That's the goal of this. That's what this is all about, is how can we authentically, respectfully, and positively promote the brand at a maximum without pissing people off and disrespecting them. All right. So a very, very important aspect of this is understanding, creating messages for groups. We want to understand and make sure that these groups, all right, that we're posting into, that we're not in conflict with them, that we're not speaking in a way that's foreign to them. Okay, because the number one thing is if we do that, we get ignored. It's not like they're going to cause conflict with us and they're going to be like, you're a jackass, you're this, you're that. More than likely, they just scroll on by and ignore you. You know what I mean? And if you consistently do it for long enough, over a long enough time period, then they'll take action. But if there's no required action to do, most people will just ignore you. Like, honestly, I challenge you with this. Look back to how you scroll through your social media, okay? Your brain auto filters out content that you don't like. So if there's an ad, okay, you go, ad, and then your eye goes to the next piece of content as a response. You identify that, but because it pisses you off, or it goes against you, or whatever it may be, okay, doesn't have to be an ad, but whatever piece of content it may be, your eye identifies it, and your conscious brain and your unconscious brain say, I don't want this. I don't agree with this. This disrespects me. This isn't respectful to what I want. Bang. I'm not going to give it any attention. And you focus on the next piece of content. But this happens in nanoseconds. So we are unaware of it to where we just go, would you really? Bang. Like our brain shuts off taking in any of that content, and our brain just says, this is not something to store in memory. This is just not even short-term memory. Just don't even bother. Do you understand? So what we want to do is we want to create our messages for the groups. Now, we can do this in two ways. So we can do either overarching themes, or we can personalize to individualized groups. So like, for example, if there was a group of, say, like 2 million, and it was exactly fully your target market, then you want to like highly customize your messages to that group in terms of you do an individual message for that group. Okay, where you personalize it to the language that the group uses, to the mannerisms, to the way that they structure their sentences, in the way that they formulate their conversations. Okay, so it's not that we're trying to manipulate people, but we're trying to align as much of our conversation to how they authentically communicate within that group. And then what happens is our messages be seen as authentic. Now, there's two things you can do in this case, okay? So one way is if you want to do a brand-friendly approach to where you're trying to promote the brand, okay, you can take more of an SEO approach, okay, to where we're creating friendly, nice, light, positive text. Now, if you're trying to do a very targeted, to where you're trying to provoke your target market out of that group and get them to take random actions towards your brand, like liking, following, messaging, all of that, what you have to do is you have to create a message for your target audience. So this is different to the group messaging. So when we're doing a group messaging, this is a broad message. This is where we're trying to create messages that appease and appeal to the majority. But these kind of messages are quite broad, and they're quite, we can still be positive, we can give value, we can connect, but we're not connecting on such a personal level that we're really provoking an action to be taken. This is where we're building trust. These are just when you're walking down the street and you see, some fella, and you smile and you wave, and he smiles and he waves. And over 3 months of you taking that action, one day you say, hey. And then over another 2 months of saying, hey, and light conversation, you might find out his name. Do you get it? Like that's this way. This is a very impersonal way of where we just take small and impersonalized, in the sense of we're taking actions that appease who we're speaking to. Okay. Whereas this, we're identifying who do we want, how do they want to be spoken to, okay, and what either value or belief causes them to take action. Okay, so is it fear? Is it pain? Is it, fear of missing out, opportunity, positivity? Like what is it? Is it that, if they just believe and they just get that one little bit of belief in themselves through personal development, that's what sparks them? Is it belief in the product? Is it belief in your ability to perform? Have they been burnt before? Like, there's many variables that come into their values and their beliefs. And all we're doing is we're trying to identify, okay, through observation and interactions, what are the values or beliefs that cause them to take an action. And, for that to happen, okay, and them to just take an action based off a value or belief, that requires an emotional response. All right. So I'll go over in more detail the ones I overlooked, and I'll wrap it all into one. Okay. So that's what we're trying to do, and how it ties in perfectly with this is by creating content themes. By creating content themes based around our brand values. So the themes in the way we promote, the way we post, the language that we use. If our values are hard work, we promote and celebrate when people are working hard. We celebrate people who are striving to work hard. We celebrate people who are developing. Do you understand? Like, we create a theme that now we can start to identify individual aspects of that theme that we can communicate through our language, through the words we use, through their tonalities, through the tone of conversation, the structure of conversation. There's so much of it, right, that we can do. So the key is just when we're creating content themes, we just want to identify brand values, maybe like personal values, any trending values in terms of like in the community that we operate in. Let's say it's e-commerce businesses. Okay. What we want to see, okay, is, what are their values? Because we also want to promote that, and we want to show them how their values and our values align. What is, the kind of like how do they explain themselves? Like, we want to try and align our communication as close to whoever we're talking to, because what that does is that gives us this instant, like this instant, I guess, key to any barrier, that is, we're just like them. So they're talking to whoever, they're close to. So through that understanding and communication, what we're able to do is we're able to instantly break that barrier from stranger to friend. Okay. So if we understand their values or their beliefs, okay, and our target market should align perfectly with our brand values. And if our brand values don't align to our target market, we need to either look at our target market and understand if it's right or wrong. And then we need to look at our brand values and understand if they're right and wrong. Majority of the time, what we'll find is we're not communicating effectively. So how we're communicating, we think we're communicating our brand values or what we feel are the values that we stand for. But we might be, for example, talking in aggressive language. You know what I mean? We might be talking from maybe ego. We might be talking from disempowerment. Like, we don't understand in the moment until we assess our ideal client or our ideal consumer and really have a look at, like, how do they present their values. And we can see this through the things that they're interested in, the things that they like, the things that they're willing to share, how they share. So observing people, you can find out a lot of information just around observing, like how do they promote themselves? Who do they promote? What's the language that they use? You know, like how do they interact with their immediate community in the online essence? All right. So really understanding this. But what this leads, what this gives way to is understanding, and it really gives us a good understanding for how to promote our values to our audience. Because when we understand their values, even if their values don't align perfectly with ours, at least we know what their values are, so we can not say things that disrespect them. We can say it in a way that respects their beliefs or their values. So, for example, if we were selling in a Muslim majority country, we wouldn't want to say things, or we wouldn't want to promote things that may offend, their cultural beliefs or their cultural identity in their faith. So what we want to do is we want to understand, well, what are their values or their beliefs within that, and how can we create our message or our content of our brand, our values, that still respects them, and may even just say that, may even say, I don't agree with you, but I respect you and you're allowed to have your belief. You know what I mean? Like, we can respectfully say, look, I believe that, what you're saying is true, but I personally choose a different path. Like, I'm not saying you're a liar. I just choose to believe what I believe. I'm not saying I'm right. So we're able to create a conversation around with not leverage, but it does give us leverage, but with a high understanding of who we're talking to. Majority of interactions I've noticed, especially around selling online and selling through social media, is a lot of people don't respect the people they're talking to the sense where they put the effort in to actually understand who are they talking to. Most of them just look at factors like, how much do you earn? Okay, you can afford my product. Do you run a business? Do you need this? Okay, you can afford my product. You need my product. Hey, do you want my product? Buy my product. This is the best product. I'm the best. You want me? I'm the best. Do you understand? Like, it's a pretty like disrespectful way to talk to someone. So you wanna understand, okay, at the core and the foundation of this framework, of this process, okay, we want to know and we want to build this ability to communicate and identify exactly who we want to talk to and how we want to talk to them and how they want to be talked to, so that if there's any misalignments or any areas where, there may be sensitivity, we're able to navigate that with a high level of risk management, rather than putting our foot in our mouth and then trying to figure out how to jam it out. You know what I mean? All right. And what we're able to do is we're able to use our values to promote our services. So basically, an important thing with this is we don't want to use our services to promote our services, because then we're selling services. So we're selling a commodity. We want to use our values to sell our services, because then we're selling the opposite of a commodity. I can't remember. It's basically we're selling a unique product. We're selling something unique then. It's not a physical, it's intangible. Like how I operate is an intangible thing that has physical results. Do you understand? So like if I just tell you how I physically operate, you can then just measure against everyone else who physically operates that way. And then what you're going to do is try and bargain and get the best price out of me. Do you understand? Whereas if I'm showing you and promoting my services through my values, through how I interact with you, how I deal with you, you know, how I communicate with you, you know, how much effort I put into understanding you. Do you understand? Because what I'm able to do is the more effort I put into understanding you, the smoother I can communicate with you. The smoother I communicate with you, the more effective I sound, the less words I need to use. Do you understand? The easier it is for me to explain a concept. So if I understand you at a high level, I'm able to communicate to you in a way to where disagreement is inauthentic with yourself. So to disagree with me is to disagree with you, because I've aligned my argument to your values. Do you understand? I've aligned my values to your values. So to go against me is to go against yourself. And that is a very highly effective way to do it. But if we don't want to go to that extent, right, what we want to do is we want to try and hit 20, 40, 50, maybe 60, 70% of it, all right? To where 60 to 80% of the time, we're on point. 20% of the time, we're just trying to be respectful. It's pretty easy. All right. So the next stage is, after we jump off that, understanding, you know, how do we communicate our values? Okay, how do we use communication to promote our values? Okay, once we understand this, then we jump into target promotions or targeted promotions. All right, how do we align the content to the target audience's goals in actions? So what does that mean? I wrote it. It sounds backwards, doesn't it? But what that means is, how are we going to align the content to our target audience's goals in their actions? So how do we align our content to obtain or give benefit to our target audience in achieving their goals and taking actions? Okay, or achieving the actions in the goals that they want, the results that they want. Do you get it? Like, if we're able to communicate at a high level and align our content to giving our target audience the results that they didn't even realize that they needed for the goals that they want to achieve, we just bang a line with them. So that's one thing. But again, in everything in life, there is the broad, and then there's the very, very specific. Now, if we want to go the specific route, it's highly complex with multiple factors, multiple layers, and multiple ways of approaching it, and multiple approaches that you have to take simultaneously to achieve success. All right, it's quite difficult. It's not overly difficult. It's quite simple, but you've just got to be either having a team that's able to operate at a high level and, you know, simultaneously project manage multiple goals across multiple varying factors and influencing factors, okay, and understand the relationships between and how they influence each other, okay? But if we don't want to go to that level and we want to stay in the broad, it's pretty easy. Who are our target market? What are their goals in life, in business? You know, if we take the same example of the e-commerce business, what are their goals? Get more traffic to the website, have a better website, convert more. Sweet. How do we align content that promotes our values that get them that result? You know what I mean? So if we're a copywriter, maybe we would create content that promotes highly attractive copy that emotionally engages people. that gets them to take an action, so that we can demonstrate in review of that content. So when we look at the statistics of the content, maybe it's not a 10% click rate, maybe it's a 40-50% click rate. You get what I'm saying? So that content is then our spear in the sale. Pretty simple, pretty basic, but it works. It's highly effective. It's very, very complex. If you want it to be complex, it's very simple if you want it to be simple. Okay? It just depends on how you want to approach it and the results you want to get. So if you want it to be simple, you got to put in more effort. If you want it to be complex, okay, you got to know more. You got to understand more. You've got to be able to deal with more in the moment. So one is more over the time period. One is more over the short. So if we're doing a general strategy where we're trying to promote into groups and we're using a general strategy, okay, this is a 3 to 6 month strategy, okay? So we're not expecting to get results tomorrow. All right. So if we're doing a highly specific campaign, okay, and strategy, the exact same groups, okay, and we've identified the number one pain point of our target audience, okay, and we've identified our target audiences in there, and we've created a post, okay, that connects exactly with that situation that target audience is in, okay, the exact situation. So if they're in business and they're struggling, how much are they struggling? How long have they got left? To the exact point. Okay. So if it's 3 months, are you going like have you been struggling? Is the water rising? Is it just keep rising? No matter how much you throw buckets of water out of the boat, it just keeps coming in. Like the boat's sinking, it's sinking, it's sinking. How many buckets can you throw out? You know what I mean? Like you get your messaging straight to that. Like you're down to your last 3 months. Action needs to be taken now. Okay. And you get a message like that, and you have content that solves immediate problems for them and an overall strategy to solve their problem, and you can communicate that at the highest level, out of that target audience, around 80 to 90%, you're going to convert it. Do you understand? But that's quite difficult because you've got to have an intricate understanding of your consumer, what they're going through, their experience. So it's best to be your ideal consumer. So whatever the values are, whatever the things, behaviors, whatever it may be that your ideal consumer is, do it. That way you understand it. That way you're able to create very, very specific campaigns that target your ideal consumer exactly, because you've been there, you've experienced it, you know what it's like, you know how to communicate it to them. Or go the broad, and the broad's a more fun way. That's where we don't have to worry about those, very, very specific situations, and where we just talk more around promoting general. Okay. So general, we want to be positive. We might be a bit, risque in the sense that we might, say something that, a pun that's, borderline controversial, but still PG. Okay. We don't want to be going around saying like, random shit. Like it sounds like we're, tinfoil hat on and we're one of those COVID nuts. We don't want to be that. So what we want to do is we want to communicate authentically and effectively while understanding how they want to be communicated to. either in a specific sense or in a general sense. And it's quite easy. All it takes is a little bit of effort. The E for victory. You know what I mean? All right. So the next sort of aspect is really understanding, individualizing your staff. So depending on the size of your business, depending on the size of your company, depending on, if your staff are even up for this, if they want this, usually it's quite easy to do, because it's like, hey, you're just going to be posting stuff about work, you know what I mean? And then you're just going to be liking work stuff. And this is just a work LinkedIn. And what it does is you're able to invest into maybe building out their LinkedIn profiles and helping them develop it so that they can build a personal brand. Now, what does a personal brand do for them? Well, in the coming years, it sort of sets them up so that if they ever wanted to leave you, and go out on their own, they've got a foothold. They've got understanding, they've got knowledge, they've got skills and abilities, they've got experience. So it helps you invest in developing your staff, okay, and getting the returns. And what that does, okay, in the sense of, they're going to work for you, they're going to be effective, they're going to be highly motivated, because when they want to leave and when they're ready, they will have, something to fall back on, something, they're not starting from scratch. So it becomes highly attractive because, one, you're creating high-performing, high-potential employees that outcompete and in a cost-to-benefit ratio far exceed the price you pay, okay, in terms of effort and time, okay? Like they're able to do now 2 or 3 different activities on top of current activities. Do you understand? And the goal is that the business owner, okay, their responsibility is to make the process easy and to micromanage and project manage it. So maybe not micromanage, but to project manage and macro and micromanage. So you want to be seeing like, hey, are you struggling to, to do this? Are you coming up against any resistance? Are you getting any negativity? Is there anything that we need to look at? But then on the macro, what direction are we going? Is the momentum moving us towards achieving the goal? Okay, is the momentum moving us towards really building what we set out to build? Okay, so how can we do this at the base level? So first we got to understand and we got to develop and train out creating individualized content. So we can create broad content and then have people individualize it in how the language that they would say it. So they basically, you give them a paragraph of what you said and they just say it in their own terms. This is good, but it also it's the early stages. Okay. So you want to start them out on a process like that so that you can micromanage the quality until it's at a point where they can micromanage that quality, and then you fall back to macro managing their output. So if their output drops, then it's like, hey, we're not sort of getting as much momentum. What's going on? All of that. Do you need help? Do you need me to come back in and micromanage? You know what I mean? And it's sort of like that's the barrier. You get it? That you create is you want to create that autonomy when they're developed and they're skilled to let them produce on their own. But if they're unable to, then that barrier has to be broken and you have to come in and micromanage. So that's sort of the respect. You know what I mean? Now, it's always best to compensate. I'd say, compensate them as a bonus, encourages them to, one, see it as an additional form of income. So now their potential earnings go up, the potential and the basically intrinsic value of the position goes up, in terms of now they're earning, let's say, $150 extra a week or whatever have you. You know what I mean? And that's 150,000 a week, whatever have you, over that year, that adds X amount to the value of their job in the eyes of other people. Because people, they base and value their job, some people do, based on how much they're earning, to the value that they feel from doing that job. So, like, for example, they might feel like this is their dream job. And then someone might say, oh, but you're not even earning any money. You're barely making ends meet. So they might then feel negatively emotional about their position. So what this really does, okay, is this helps us give them the emotional, because we're developing skills, but we're also developing their confidence in being able to build out their own individual brand and following. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to build out the individual brand, and then we want to use the individual content to build out the business brands following. Okay. The next is promoting a culture of nurturing their individual following and engagement from content. So basically what this means, because this is another one of those backwards sentences that really means something, but you've got to understand like how I think to decipher it. So what we want to understand is, well, we really want to develop and train them on how do they want culture, like how do we promote a culture in the business? Okay, how do we promote a culture in our training? How do we promote a culture in our development of them taking responsibility for nurturing their individual following? So doing, consistent posts, consistently engaging with their following, because they get benefits out of this as well. Tell me, if you were, paid in your position to talk to people and to build networks and relationships that were, work networks and relationships, professional networks and relationships for personal reasons, so for example, maybe you give them the challenge of finding a marketing person to talk to, so that they can better understand marketing, and they can share, with a marketing person what they do and what they learn, and like things like that. Like, how do we promote them growing and expanding and building? And another thing you can do is you can have payment increments, stage, contracts, to where if they reach certain levels and certain competencies, they go up into new roles, they take on more, to where you can actually, turn this from building a personal brand to building a personal brand and business under your business, to the point to where, they can operate their own landing pages and all of that. But that's, you'd really want to have a strategy like this in place for probably 12 to 24 months before you even think of anything like that, because there's a lot of kinks and a lot of issues, that like growing pains, that'll come from it. All right. So building out a process, the number one key that we got to understand is the foundation sets us up for growth. So if we set our foundation weak, our growth can only sustain weekly. Like if we take shortcuts, we don't invest, we focus on short-term goals opposed to long-term goals. We really need to have a mixture between short to long-term goals. So we really want to know, like, what are the actions I got to do today to get paid? And what are the actions I got to make sure that I'm doing so that I get paid in 10 years? You know what I mean? Or so that I'm relevant, so that I'm, high performing, whatever it may be. Honestly, it can be anything. But basically, we want to build our foundation with the intention of expansion, of growth. So how do we create a solid foundation for this process, okay, which is getting employees to either create content and post it to your business page, or you create content and give it to them to slightly personalize and customize and then post, or to add to and post. Do you understand? Whatever you have here. And then we're getting a process, okay, of one, getting the content from them to the website, getting them to individually post it out to 3 groups or whatever have you, however many you want to be, curating and managing their profiles so that their profiles are strategic hooks for your company, because these stars are your stars. So the attention they get, you get as a flow-on effect, okay? But you're also then able to promote and then celebrate. So do you sort of get it, that there's a lot of moving parts and we got to build them one at a time, but we've got to set up systems, processes, so that at each stage we know minimum standards for effectiveness, how to train effectively, how to monitor and manage, how to improve, how to update, all these things. So there's many layers if we want to be really good at it, and we want to set it up properly, and we want to set up a really solid foundation to where we have everything before we look at turning the tap on and growing and expanding. Or do we want to streamline it to where we're rapidly creating our foundation as we move? Okay. And both ways are very good. One way is more structured and slow and moving, so it's a lot more relaxing. The other way is more fast paced, but there are slightly more costs incurred with growing at a rapid rate. So for example, if we wanted to do that, maybe we got to pay, people to build out processes, or maybe we got to have staff process what they're doing and how they're doing it and all of that. And then we sort of got to, take the costs of, maybe they don't know exactly what they mean, and maybe some bad information gets through, and maybe mistakes are made and miscommunications and this and that, and maybe wasted time. That's okay. You know what I mean? So like, one way we can prepare and over prepare before we take any action, and then we can take a bit of action and measure and test and do that. Or the other way is that we can just charge along and pave the path behind us to make it easier. Sometimes it's not always going to be even, but on the overall, it allows us to move quicker. So it just depends on your risk tolerance as to sort of how you want to go. But the best way to do it is, with a process like this, we just want to make it and keep it as simple as possible. If we're doing the broad process, in terms of we're targeting broadly, it's pretty simple. We just create solid processes of the actions we take for success. We post once an hour for a 4-hour time period in the morning, once an hour for a 4-hour time period in the afternoon, once an hour for a 4-hour time period in the mid to late night. Boom. You could break it down to 2 hours. So you do two posts. That's like 6-8 posts a day. You know what I mean? 6 or 8, whatever. But it's quite easy for us to create a process or a solid foundation to improve on, because all we have to do is one post, every 4 hours, and that works out. We do one post in the morning, one post at lunch, one post in the mid to late afternoon, one post in the mid to late night. Boom. So quite easy. And then over time, when we want to do more, we can expand on that because we've got a simple process built out. Okay. But what we really got to understand is when we're building this foundation, the next step is, what are the goals and objectives of this process? So, for example, this process that I'm explaining to you, its goals and objectives are to create interest. Okay, so to promote the brand name of the business, or the brand values of the business, or the brand product or service, whatever it may be. But the real thing is, we're trying to promote who we are as individuals and get individuals to follow us back, or to jump back to our page, or to jump on our website and check us out. The whole goal of this is we want to promote that, hey, we're a reasonable person like you, so you would probably like doing business with us. Simple, easy, light objectives. We don't want to go too heavy, too quick, in terms of, we don't want to be trying to sell through this process, because that's way too pushy. We're not respecting people. It comes across as manipulative, and it really damages our reputation in the greater communities that we're trying to operate. So don't do that. All right. So, the next one, is building out the personal brands. So the difference to building out, to individualizing your staff, this is how do we make an individual persona for a staff member? How do we create personality for them? This, on the other hand, is how do we communicate, and how do we build our audience? How do we promote our content? How do we create our strategies? How do we build and maintain a consistent content posting ritual? What that means. So what does that mean? What is a consistent content posting ritual? So we've got to make things ritualistic, in the sense of on the hour, at the hour, or at specific times every day. I take this specific action, because we want to create it as a behavioral pattern, because it's a lot easier for us to develop out a habit than it is to build out a process and follow a process. Because all we have to do is, for a habit, for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, all we got to do is the same thing. And then we start to get used to it. So it becomes easier. And then expansion becomes easier. Do you understand? Like we're trying to build out these rituals of, when I post something new to my page, I post to groups at the same, straight after. Things like that. Like just simple things like that make the brand. Because when you're building a brand, if you're, posting here, there, everywhere now, then how do people know when to expect your posts? How do people get used to you? Think about it like this. If you got a friend circle and there's one friend that comes in once sporadically every couple of months and says hi, like how, doesn't tell you prior to coming into town, how are you going to know that he's in town? You won't. So then it's a last minute thing, a last ditch thing. We want the consistency because people get used to the consistency. So consistency helps us get used to the actions we're taking. Consistency also helps our consumers get used to us and the actions we take. And the more they get used to us, the more they can trust us, because the more they understand us and the more they know and like and trust us. All right. So that's that. So pretty much that covers everything. And basically, it's just a simple, easy process to turn, 5 employees into 5 business posters, 5 representatives of the brand that post to the brand, so that the brand's getting 5 posts a day. So there's all this activity. So in comparison to everyone else, oh my God, how do you do it? It's quite simple. 5 people posting once a day, 5 posts a day. How many brands do that many posts? Like not many, unless they're large corporations or unless they're highly competitive. But most of them don't, because they're afraid to post, or the things that they post are just like nonsense, where people post, bait content, where they tell you this or that, or they've got this secret formula, and you go in there and it's just a course that they want you to buy. Like, you don't want to do that. This way is easier. This way is better. This way is going to respect who you're trying to talk to while building high amounts of rapport and trust. And depending on the approach you take that we spoke about, it'll either cause people to provoke them to take action, or it'll slowly over time cause them to build massive amounts of trust and rapport with your brand, and to slowly start coming towards you. Okay. And it just depends if you do a highly specific strategy to where you really, really understand your consumer, the emotional states they're going through, or you do a general one. But this is pretty much going to cover off this video. There's not a great deal much I can, there is. I could sit here and talk for like probably at least another 100 hours before. Like, I'm pretty knackered now from talking, but I could keep going on for about 100 to 1,000 more hours on this topic alone. You know what I mean? Because usually there's just so much. You know what I mean? There's so much to know. There's so much moving parts, but that's only if you got a microscope. But if you're looking, from a couple of feet away, it's simple. It's just understanding how to communicate and how to communicate effectively, and really understanding, the number one thing, how to respect people without pissing them off. It's, like, how do you talk to people without pissing them off? Just respect them. Respect their beliefs, respect their value, respect their time, respect, anything that they've gone through. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you do have to respect them. Okay? Because if you don't, you cause conflict. All right. Well, you guys have a great day, and I hope this helps.